Japan, late 1950s. A nation rebuilt, but a railway on the brink. Cities were growing faster than the tracks could handle. Trains were packed, delayed, and running out of answers. Cars were rising, planes promised speed. Rail faced irrelevance. So Japan didn't upgrade a train, it reinvented rail itself. This is the story of the train that saved the railway. The Shinkansen Zero series. The country was rebuilding with astonishing speed. Cities expanding, factories humming, and millions of people moving between major urban centers every single day. At the heart of it all sat the Tokaido Line, the narrow-gauge railway linking Tokyo and Osaka, carrying passengers, freight, and the weight of an entire nation's recovery. It was the busiest rail corridor in the world, and it was exhausted. Trains were overcrowded, delays rippled across the network. Freight movements clashed with passenger demand. No matter how carefully schedules were tweaked, the system had no room left to breathe. At the same time, alternatives were emerging. Cars symbolized freedom. Airlines promised speed. Railways, once revolutionary, risked becoming slow, noisy, and inconvenient by comparison. Japan National Railways understood the danger clearly. If rail lost public trust now, it might never recover. This wasn't a question of comfort or prestige. It was survival. The old system had reached its absolute limit. Adding more trains would only make congestion worse. Improving old tracks wouldn't change the fundamentals. To save the railway, Japan would have to abandon tradition itself. And that meant proposing something so bold it frightened nearly everyone who heard it. If this feels like the calm before something big, stick with us and subscribe for more stories of machines that changed everything. The proposal sounded reckless on paper. Build an entirely new railway from Tokyo to Osaka. Use standard gauge instead of Japan's traditional narrow gauge. Separate it completely from freight traffic. Eliminate level crossings. Design it for speeds no passenger train had ever sustained. Critics were relentless. Japan was still burdened by war debt. Costs spiraled upward almost immediately. Political support wavered. Some economists warned the project could bankrupt the national railway. But engineers argued that half measures would doom rail forever. Incremental improvements could never compete with cars or airplanes. Only a clean break, a system designed from scratch for speed and reliability, could restore rail's relevance. Construction began in 1959. Mountains were drilled through. Cities were spanned by elevated concrete viaducts. Budgets exploded. Deadlines slipped. Careers were sacrificed. Failure would not just embarrass Japan, it would confirm that railways belonged to the past. Yet the vision never changed. A high-speed railway that ran on its own terms, immune to congestion, weather, and compromise. They named it Shinkansen, New Trunk Line. And to make that line work, Japan needed a train worthy of the gamble. The Shinkansen Zero series was not designed to impress. It was designed to function flawlessly at speed. Its rounded nose wasn't style, it was aerodynamics, shaped to reduce drag and pressure at velocities rail had never mastered before. Engineers stripped weight wherever possible, using lightweight aluminum bodies instead of traditional steel. Power wasn't concentrated in a single locomotive, but distributed across multiple cars, improving traction, acceleration, and stability. Advanced suspension systems kept the ride smooth, even as speed climbed past 200 kilometers per hour. That number alone shocked the world. But speed was only half the equation. Consistency mattered more. The Zero series was engineered to operate on a fully dedicated line, free from freight traffic, crossings, and slow trains. Precision scheduling became the foundation of its identity. Trains would arrive not roughly on time, but exactly on time. This wasn't just a faster train. It was a redefinition of trust between passengers and machines. Japan wasn't building transport, it was building confidence. And soon the world would see whether that confidence was justified. On October 1st, 1964, Japan unveiled the Shinkansen to the world. Just days before the Tokyo Olympics, the first Zero Series trains departed on schedule, slicing through the countryside between Tokyo and Osaka with an ease no one had experienced before. The timing was deliberate. Japan wasn't just hosting the world, it was introducing itself anew. Passengers expected speed, What they didn't expect was calm. The ride was smooth, almost silent. There was no smoke, no clatter, no sense of strain. At over 200 kilometers per hour, the train felt composed, precise, confident. Tokyo to Osaka dropped to 4 hours. Then faster. Suddenly, same-day business travel became normal. Distance collapsed. Time returned. For Japan National Railways, the gamble paid off instantly. Trains ran on time down to the second. Public skepticism turned into awe. Rail wasn't catching up with modern life. It was setting the pace. The Shinkansen didn't arrive loudly. It arrived correctly. And in that quiet perfection, Japan showed the world what the future of rail could look like when nothing was left to chance. What followed wasn't admiration, it was transformation. The impact of the Shinkansen was immediate and unmistakable. Passenger numbers surged beyond projections. Domestic airlines lost short-haul routes. Highways felt relief as commuters chose rail for speed and reliability. For the first time, trains didn't feel like compromise. They felt like the smartest option. The Zero Series didn't just move people faster, it restored faith. Rail travel became predictable, dignified, and dependable in a way no other transport mode could match. Businesses reorganized around timetables. Families planned days, not journeys. Cities drew closer together without physically expanding. What Japan had proven was simple and radical. Rail could beat planes on short and medium distances if it was designed properly. Not faster in theory, faster in reality. Other nations took notice. Engineers visited, governments studied. Concepts once dismissed as fantasy suddenly became policy discussions. The railway hadn't survived by clinging to tradition. It survived by reinventing itself completely. The Shinkansen wasn't an upgrade, it was a rescue. And as the system expanded, the train itself became something more than transport. It became a symbol. The Zero Series quickly grew into a national icon. Its white body and blue stripe came to represent precision, discipline, and a quiet confidence earned through execution, not noise. Tourists rode it just to experience the future. Children drew it, engineers admired it, international media praised it. The Shinkansen told the world that Japan wasn't recovering anymore. It was leading. Perhaps most astonishing was its safety record. Decade after decade, millions of passengers traveled without a single fatal accident caused by train operation. In an industry defined by risk, that achievement felt almost impossible. The train became inseparable from Japan's post-war identity, standing alongside the 1964 Tokyo Olympics as proof that the country had not only rebuilt, but surpassed expectations. Yet even perfection has a lifespan. Technology advances, standards rise. What once felt revolutionary slowly becomes familiar, and the very success of the Zero Series began to create pressure for something faster, quieter, and more efficient. Because progress doesn't stop for pioneers, it builds on them. By the late 1970s, the Shinkansen was no longer shocking. It was normal. And in engineering, normal is the first step toward replacement. Newer train designs emerged with higher speeds, better energy efficiency, and quieter operation. Tunnels demanded reduced noise. Cities demanded lower vibration. Passengers expected more comfort. The Zero Series, once revolutionary, was now the baseline others were measured against. It still worked flawlessly. That was the problem. Technology doesn't retire machines for failure. It retires them for being surpassed. The Zero Series consumed more power than newer models. Its aerodynamics, once cutting edge, couldn't compete with sleeker noses designed for higher speeds and tunnel pressure waves. Maintenance remained excellent, but expectations had risen. Japan's rail engineers faced a familiar dilemma. Loyalty versus progress. Preserve the pioneer or make room for its successors. They chose forward motion. Gradually, the Zero Series was reassigned. Shorter routes, secondary duties, then fewer runs. Each timetable change pushed it gently toward history. There was no outrage, no resistance, just acceptance. Because in Japan, progress isn't sentimental, it's respectful. And the train that saved the railway had already done its job. Now it was time to step aside. In December 2008, the last Shinkansen Zero Series made its final journey. there was no emergency, no mechanical failure, just a scheduled retirement executed with the same precision that defined its entire life. Rail fans gathered along platforms and tracks. Cameras clicked. Some waved, some bowed. For many, this wasn't just a train leaving service. It was the end of an era they'd grown up trusting. The final run was smooth, quiet, on time, as it always had been. Japan didn't retire the Zero Series because it was outdated. It retired it because the system it created demanded constant improvement. That was its true legacy, not speed, but standards. The train rolled into the depot, power down, doors closed, mission complete. No drama, just dignity. And in that quiet exit, the Shinkansen proved something rare, that a machine can finish its life exactly as it lived it. Reliable, respectful, purposeful. But even as the wheels stopped turning, the influence of the Zero Series continued to move, because its ideas were already everywhere, on rails far beyond Japan. Every modern high-speed railway owes something to the Shinkansen Zero Series. Dedicated tracks, distributed traction, precision scheduling. These weren't trends, they were foundations. France's TGV, Germany's ICE, China's vast high-speed network. All traced their philosophy back to what Japan proved in 1964. That rail, if designed properly, could dominate modern transport. The Zero Series didn't just change trains, it changed expectations. People learned to trust timetables again. Cities reoriented around stations. Distance lost its power. Travel became routine, not risky. Most importantly, the Shinkansen saved rail from irrelevance at the exact moment it mattered most. When the world was ready to abandon trains, Japan showed what they could become instead. That is why the Zero Series matters. Not because it was the fastest, not because it was the most advanced forever, but because it arrived at the right moment, solved the right problem, and refused to fail. And sometimes that's enough to change everything, because the future of rail didn't arrive by chance. It arrived on time. The Shinkansen Zero Series didn't just make trains faster, it saved an entire system from fading into irrelevance. At a moment when railways around the world were losing ground to cars and planes, Japan chose reinvention over retreat. Instead of clinging to tradition, it built something so reliable, so precise, and so transformative that rail became the obvious choice again. The Zero Series proved a simple but radical idea. Speed means nothing without trust. Trains had to be on time, every time. They had to be safe, quiet, and predictable enough that people would reorganize their lives around them. And once that trust was earned, rail didn't just compete, it won. This train reshaped cities, economies, and expectations. It turned distance into minutes. It made high-speed rail normal, not exceptional. And it forced the rest of the world to rethink what railways were capable of in the modern age. The Shinkansen Zero Series wasn't built to impress, it was built to endure. And by doing so, it didn't just change how Japan moved. It ensured that railways would still matter in the future. Sometimes saving an industry doesn't require nostalgia or protection. It requires courage, precision, and a train that never forgets to arrive on time. If you enjoyed this story of a machine that didn't just run on rails, but changed their future, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the inventions that saved entire industries. From steam giants to silent bullets, we uncover the moments when engineering rewrote history. Tell us in the comments, which machine do you think truly changed the world?